Welcome back! I'm Rory with Rugged Badger Racing and Team Parts Badger. This is our Ecotec swap Miata that we raced in the Champ Car Endurance Series and our new F-Class Miata that we're preparing as well. This video, we're going to talk specifically about tires and the RT660 and the new RT660 Plus coming out. Let's dive in. Now, you might ask, why are we running an RT660 when in my previous videos I did not recommend this tire? And one of the reasons I did not recommend this tire was this middle tread on the tire itself begins to pull up. We've actually had some experience with that. It happens very quickly in the tire's life overall, and then it begins to start shredding, which isn't great. And I believe this is a really common problem, and it might be a problem that's part of a manufacturing defect. Now, Falken is coming out with a new RT660 Plus, which I'll talk about. They don't necessarily address this issue, but I really think they're going to be addressing this issue. Nonetheless, I had a Grid Life race coming up, and Grid Life did not allow the tire we were running before, which is the Nankang CRS version 2s, and the RT660 seemed like the best tire that would work for that series. I also know that wasn't going to be a ton of track time on that tire overall, so it would be a good test bed to see how the tire performed. Now, how did the tire perform? Now, the tire seemed to hold up okay. I only had about an hour and a half of track time overall, but the tire felt good, it was reasonably quick, and I was confident enough after briefly looking over those tires to decide to buy new sets of the 245 RT660 for our next endurance race, which would be Road America and the VIR North race, both of which were a 7-hour, 8-hour combination weekend race. Road America also had a test day added in. So I definitely needed tires. I couldn't get the 245 Nexen tires. Those were not available to purchase, so this was the next best option. Now, I wish I inspected those tires in a little bit more detail, because when I did, I noticed that some of the tires did in fact have this middle tread pulling up. Now, I don't know necessarily, again, why this happens, but that was happening on some of those tires. Nonetheless, we decided to let it rip, and the team ended up running these at Road America. Now, for the Road America race, they ended up running about 3 to 4 hours of total track time during the test day. They ran about 6 hours, I believe, on the first day for the first race. So that would bring us to, let's say, about 12 hours. And then they ran 7 hours on the following day, which is 19 hours of total track time. We then used the same tires, or the same sets of tires, which I believe I had 9 total at that point. And then we raced the VIR North race, which was an 8-hour and then 7 hours. So another 15 hours of track time on those tires overall. In total, around like 30, 35 hours of overall track time across roughly 10 tires or so. That's enough to get about 14 hours out of a set on average. Now, I don't know if those numbers are exactly right. I know the 14, 13 and a half, somewhere in there is accurate. However, we did have some really interesting results. So overall, the tires held up pretty well. We had a nice even wear across the tire. They maintained grip really well. They didn't seem to overheat too bad, with one notable exception, which I have here. And this tire is absolutely mangled. This was a brand new sticker tire when we put this on at VIR North. We put it on the front left, which is one of the most wear, or the most load on this particular tire on that track. Nonetheless, this tire made it about 2 stints before this started happening, and I had to drive around this for an entire stint. Absolutely destroyed. Something else to note is that both the Road America race as well as the VIR North race were pretty cool races. I don't know if this is specifically heat related, but if it gets really, really hot, I don't know how well these things are going to hold up overall. So let me tell you a little bit about what our game plan is moving forward tire-wise and why we're making that decision. All right, so I'm here at the computer. Let's dive in a little bit and talk about this chart I made. Now, we haven't been able to do back-to-back testing of these particular tires, but we know roughly which tires seem to be faster than the others. Specifically, we know that the RE71 RS is a faster tire than the V730. We know that the RS4 and the Extreme Continental Force are about the same speed-wise, and they're quite a bit slower. But where does the 660 land overall? Now, the CRS version 2, that is a really fast tire. Might even be one of the fastest tires on the market overall. And it seems based on the data that we've gathered that that really is the case. Where does the RT660 stack up next to the RE71RS, the AO52, and more importantly, the Nexen? And then let's look at the sizes and what we have. So what I did is I went through the various track testing that was done by Andy Hollis at Grassroots Motorsports, which I have all these links up here from all the various tire tests that he did, as well as some of the TireRack test data. And any time where I actually have lap data being performed by these companies, I took that data in and created this matrix overall so I can compare the tires. Now, there's a couple caveats here because not all the tires were apples to apples. In some cases, we have to correct the data because we have a 225 or a 235 racing against a 245. There's also different rim testing and things like that. So what I did is I corrected for the rim width, the tire width, as well as the overall diameter of the tires. Based, again, on some of Andy Hollis's data, I created rough calculations for that, which you'll actually see starting in blue, where I have the rim width overall. He did a test with a 305, a 205, a 225, and then a 245 using a base width and then a 1-inch wider rim. These are the results. So overall, a 1-inch wider rim ended up with 0.5% faster lap time. Now going to tire width, generally speaking, the biggest tire width-wise was always the fastest with the exception of diameter. So when we look at a base width plus a 10 millimeter in width versus a 20 millimeter in width, it looks like we're averaging about 0.6% for 20 millimeters in width, which is going to be important for us because we're going to be evaluating the 225 versus the 245. Lastly, I'm looking at diameter, and he was looking at, Andy Hollis in particular, two different tire sizes, one with a small diameter, one with a big diameter, resulting in this case, about 1.13%, which is about 0.63% per inch. Now, I do know from testing a 245/40/17 tire that we actually had very similar results, even though it was a grippier compound. That was back when we did testing with the RE71R versus I believe it was even the RS4 back then on a 15-inch. We weren't able to get faster speed, even though that was a better compound, because our gearing was all messed up. It's a much bigger tire. It's much heavier. So we have these correction percentages for diameter, correction percentages for width, and that allowed us to take some of these tests and get them apples to apples, even when they weren't running the same rims or the right tire widths overall. That was really only the case with the RT660. Now, all of the testing across these tires, and there certainly were more, but it looks like I have 11, and I got a couple duplicated, maybe 9 different tires are actually being compared here. The 9 most relevant ones, which we start at the slower end, which is the RS4, the Extreme Contact Force, the Kuhmo V730. Then we start moving into the faster tires like the RE71RS, the Yokohama AO52, the Nexen tire, as well as the 660s, and finally the CRS version 2. So I have all of this data here. And what I did to compare these times, I have a matrix over on this side, and as a percentage, I'm comparing across all of the tests and getting an aggregate percentage. Where they're not tested head-to-head, I'm actually taking weighted averages across the test left and right to create a matrix value that gives us these actual averages. Now, it's a lot of math, it's a lot of numbers, but I think the only column that really matters right here is this matrix average column. And this matrix average column is going to tell us how fast that tire is as far as percentage of lap time. And then I'm comparing this across a couple of other things. So you'll notice I also have a rating that, again, is from Grassroots Motorsports, where they have certain grip ratings of A, B, C. Generally speaking, my testing and taking the data that they have, this is generally accurate, which it should be, right? Most of the data is from Grassroots Motorsports, and their rating data is fairly accurate, and that kind of matches up with our own experience as well. And now I have to do some adjustments because not every tire is available in a 245/40/15, which is obviously the fastest tire you can run in a Miata. Really, the only tires that are available for that are the Extreme Contact Force, the RS4, the RT660, the Nankang CRS version 2, and then the Nexen, when it's in stock, we don't know when that's going to be in stock again. So I'm going to have to do corrections if we want to run a 225 tire, which the RE71RS is available in a 225 with a 50 series. The AO52, I believe, is a 225 and a 45 series. The Nexen is available in a 225. So I have the adjustments put in here. Number one is for the tread width. So we have 0.6% when I'm going down 20 in tread width, 20 millimeters, which is the case with these tires. I also have a height adjustment, which is the overall diameter of the tire. Some actually change quite a bit, like you can see on the RE71RS, because it's a 50 series, it's actually much taller. Versus if we actually ran a 225 RT660, the diameter actually doesn't change that much. But there's also another thing called the rim adjustment, because running a wider rim, even on a smaller tire, seems to be a little bit faster. Now, in my experience running a 245, between the 9-inch and the 10-inch, we really didn't notice a time difference, and it's not that much. We're only talking about 0.5% in an inch, so we run a 9.5-inch rim. That said, if we run a 225 tire, that's going to stretch out, and we're going to get a little bit of our performance back overall, because the sidewall rigidity and things like that, it's just going to make the slip angles and the performance of the tire better, or at least so the articles tell us. So based on this, I can have a corrected lap time value. And I have a base value in here of 102.5 seconds at Road Atlanta. And I can look at what our projected lap time would be if we ran all of these different tire combinations, adjusting for the different sizes and things like that. I also have wear. So we, like I mentioned, the set of the RT660 seemed to last about 13.6 hours based on the testing that we did between Grid Life, Road America, as well as VIR North Course. Again, we're kind of matching that up to wear rating, but that's not necessarily perfect to the data that I'm looking at. It seems somewhat close, but an example would be they give a B rating to the RT660, and we think that lasts a little bit longer. And the B rating is actually worse than the wear rating on the CRS version 2, which we know really only lasted about 7 hours. Nonetheless, we're taking that into account. I just have some other notes. But finally, I'm looking at a cost per hour. So when I'm looking at cost per hour, the Nankangs are faster, but if you look, at the end of the day, we're really not going to be that much faster than if we ran an RT660 or a 245 Nexen. If we ran a 225 Nexen, we would still be just a little bit slower, about 0.6 seconds a lap. And to get a full second a lap slower, we start getting into the much slower compounds, the smaller width tires. Now, apples to apples, if the RE71RS actually made a tire that was a 245, I'm sure that would be a phenomenal tire. That's one of the fastest, but they don't. Because it's a 225 with a 50 series, we're not going to have the performance in the Miata out of that tire. So right away, we can write off a bunch of these tires. Now, a notable exception here is the cost per hour of an RS4. The RS4, performance-wise, is right on par with the Extreme Contact 4s. Believe it's going to last quite a bit longer, and that is a really, really good value. If you are a budget team, you want to save money and have a decent tire, the RS4 is definitely a good tire to have. Now, there is a whole list of tires that aren't on here because they're slower. The RS4, I would say, is a good middle-of-the-road tire. There are certainly other tires that are quite a bit slower that probably last the same amount of time as far as durability is concerned, but RS4 is certainly a good tire to look at. Now, looking at the crop of fast tires, we have a lot of different values here around this $50 an hour. That's substantially better than the Nankangs, which are $138 per hour. Those are incredibly expensive, but like I said, man, that is a killer tire. But I don't think the lap times are going to be a whole lot different. So what's interesting with this data, when we're looking at the overall cost per hour, first off, Nexen is definitely in the hunt in a 245. The problem is I cannot get a 245 Nexen. I don't know when they're coming back in the United States. I know I can get RT660s, and in particular, the RT660 Plus. So we'll dive into that into a second, but you can see based on cost, overall time, we're really landing on continuing to run the RT660. Hopefully, the overall issue that I'm having with the tire either overheating or the tread just basically disintegrating. Hopefully that issue is limited and we have enough tires that we can work around it if it is still there. But just on paper, I think our best option is just to continue to run the RT660. Now, let's talk a little bit about the RT660 Plus. Now, the RT660 Plus, what's going to be the difference? Is this going to be a major improvement like it was for the RT615 and the RT615 Plus? We're not really sure. The best statement that I could find is actually from the SCCA. And the SCCA is saying, per Falken, the intended enhancement is for the handling characteristics, presents a new sidewall look, but carries over the same tread compound as the RT660. Now, this could very well be a statement in corporate language where they're effectively not admitting that their tires delaminate and saying, okay, this new tire is going to fix it. Maybe it is just a sidewall update. So fingers crossed that this tire is actually there and they released this to fix the delaminating issue, which they have been getting a lot of negative press for. We see from the numbers that I presented previously that this is a good tire option, especially with the Nexen, frankly, just being unavailable and with them not really communicating when it's actually going to be available. It's really hard for teams to decide what to use. In addition to that, all of the other manufacturers that have the hot compounds that we want to run are completely ignoring the 245, 40, 15 market segment, which is a really big segment for us Miata people, as well as the E30 BMW people, some Honda people as well. This is really a good tire size, and I wish some of these other compounds could throw their hat in the ring and begin making tires in this size. But for now, we're going to roll the dice. I'm going to place an order on a tire rack for some RT660s because we have a race coming up February 7th at Atlanta with the Champ Car Endurance Series. That is a 14-hour race, and I think it'll be a good opportunity to test whether or not these tires actually last 14 hours. We're probably going to have about 10 to 12 tires ready to go between the two cars, so we will have some backup options. So fingers crossed. Wish us luck, and please remember, if you like this content, to like and subscribe below. Give me a little bit of encouragement to keep making these videos. Thanks for watching.